Are you getting ready to plan your next virtual event and wanting to make sure that it is a success? Well, I'm going to lay out 3 of the biggest mistakes that I have seen time and time again made by virtual event organizers and hosts that have drastically impacted their return on investment and their retention for attendees. I'm going to lay out what those mistakes are and how you as an organizer can avoid them. So stick around. Before we get into it, I do want to remind you to like, subscribe, turn on that little notification bell so you get notified every single Monday when I drop new videos. If you also want more free content about event planning, I am the co-host of the Better Events podcast. You can listen to it wherever you get your podcasts. I co-host it with Mary Davidson of EP Events, another event pro, and we share weekly tips and tricks and interview guests to share their expertise. So head over there, give it a listen, but without further ado, let's get back into the content. One of my favorite things to do as an event professional is to attend other people's events. It's great when you are behind the scenes and you can see the inner workings and what works and what doesn't, but even as an attendee, you can notice some things and you can learn. And there are 3 common pitfalls that I keep seeing time and time again at other virtual events. And I'm not gonna lie, some of them have made even me log off early. So my first one would be not having enough information as an attendee about how to use the event platform. So this is like your venue. I always talk about your virtual event platform is your venue. And you as a planner have been living on your platform for weeks, maybe months, depending on the length of the event time you've been planning this event. But as an attendee, they might be interacting with it just for that one day, or just for that multi-day, or just for that 1 hour. And I will often say that Zoom is a great virtual event platform purely because as a person, as an attendee, we're, as a society, probably the most comfortable with those video calls. We all know how to log on, we all know how to mute, turn our camera on and off, and interact with other attendees in the chat. So there is very low barrier to entry if you're hosting an event on Zoom. Now, if you're using one of these newer platforms or any other virtual event platform, you are going to have to do some education with your attendees. And what I often get frustrated with as an attendee myself to other people's events is getting very limited information ahead of the event of what the expectations are for me as the attendee, how to log on, is it just a click of a button and I'm in your event? Am I going to need to re-register the day of? Do I need to pre-select sessions I want to go to, or can I just go to them? Do I need to be ready to be on camera? I can't tell you a couple of events I've gone to where they wanted attendees on camera, and I could clearly tell the event host was disappointed that more people weren't participating on camera. And I will tell you, it was nowhere in the pre-event communication for us to come camera ready. And we've all been there. I'm camera ready for these videos. We've all been there where maybe we weren't in the environment where that's conducive to participating in the event. But if I'd known that ahead of time, maybe I would have planned to be in an environment where I could be with my video on. So think through your know before you go email. That's one of the phrases that we use a lot in event industry, but you can call it whatever you want. But any pre-event communication, I will also link to my video where I have the 5 things you should include in your know before you go. Because if anything, the way to avoid this common mistake is to over communicate with your attendees. Don't be afraid to share all of the information they could possibly need about how to log on, how you want them to be ready. Are they interacting in the chat? Do you want them to be able to be on camera? Just really think through all of that information, because some of my least favorite experiences as an attendee at a virtual event have been times when I have had no communication or too little communication about how they want me to show up as an attendee. And my second biggest mistake I see with virtual events is copying and pasting the same timing you use in person and expecting it to work in the virtual world. I have another video about it. I will link above, but it's really important to think through every single piece of your content and why you're asking for someone's attention. The beauty with virtual is you don't have limitations on the number of people often that you can come to your event. Some platforms do, but it is very scalable. But what you need to think about is your virtual audience's attention span is gonna be a lot shorter. So don't just take your multi-day event that you did in person and do the exact same timing virtually. I'm not saying a 3-day conference in person can't turn into a 3-day virtual event, but maybe it's not a full day in the virtual world. Maybe it's half days, or you often did maybe a 3-hour in-person fundraiser. You want to turn it virtual. Think about doing it for an hour. You used to have an hour-long keynote speaker in an auditorium full of people. Virtually, cut it down to 20 minutes. Keep it to a tight 20. Not only are you trying to hold your attendees' attention span, but you're also competing with everything else that happens on their computer, everything that else that happened at home or in their office, wherever they physically are. And so just be more intentional with that timing. And if you're starting to think through hybrid, even more important to figure out the timing and what you want to do and how you're going to cater to both your in-person audience as well as your virtual one. So just being strategic, trust me, your attendees will thank you. If you are someone who's just doing exactly what they did in person and putting it online as part of your virtual event, you're gonna find a little bit of drop off with your attendees. And when I say a little, you're gonna probably see a lot of drop off with your attendees. So be intentional with your timing. And my third and final mistake that I see at virtual events is forgetting to set the tone from the beginning of your event. What do I mean by this? When you want to do something that is celebratory, like an award show, set that tone from the beginning. Have some fun slides, have some party-esque music, or do it to a theme if your award show has a theme. If you're looking for something that's a little bit more reflective, like a workshop where you want people to maybe be sharing more personal stories, maybe you have calming music on in the background, and actually you, as the host, are on screen personally welcoming everybody as they join your workshop. Really think through how you're going to make that first impression, because the big thing with virtual, it is so easy to lose people. In person, maybe someone had to, get up and walk out of your venue and go to their car or go catch the bus or arrange an Uber. But with virtual, it's as simple as hitting like a little red X on your screen or hitting leave meeting. It is so quick. And trust me, as an event producer, I love events. And I have done this at virtual events because they haven't thought through those first few minutes. Especially if you are going to host an event that's all about hosting virtual events, test out exactly what you want to do in your first couple minutes. Rehearse it. Are you doing an opening video? Make sure you know exactly how to roll that video so everyone sees it and hears it and everything rolls perfect. But you just need to think through those first few minutes, because that is where you're either going to sell people and convince them to stick around, or you're going to lose them real quick. And so this is one of the biggest things I see event organizers forget, because in person, maybe it's a more casual, doors open, you have coffee and pastries and people kind of wander in when they can. Virtual, you don't really have that luxury, so you need to be very intentional with how you start your events. And those are the three biggest mistakes that I see time and time again. Not communicating enough with attendees, not thinking through your timing and just copying what you did in person, and forgetting to set the tone from the very beginning of your event. If you are able to avoid those three mistakes, I think you're already setting yourself up for success, not only to increase your turnout for your attendees, but then also your retention too, and how long they actually engage with your virtual event. Well, that's all I got for you guys. I'm Logan Clements, freelance event producer, and this has been another installment of my favorite tips and tricks when it comes to event planning, virtual events, event production, and running your own business. I'll talk to you guys again next week. Bye.